What I think really affected me about this project is seeing how the scale of a project doesn't always matter. That to do a project in one town with a small group of students, but to really invest in it can have more impact than a lot of really large-scale projects.
John and his team at Pratt had put together a very interesting analysis of how we could help towns create design industry starting from its own heritage.
We talked about what we could do, what are the possibilities. How could it become something that was interdisciplinary? This idea of cross-pollination between disciplines gets discussed a lot, but it isn't often activated. And this project really
group that turned into this creative exchange was a mix of different departments. So we had communications design and social sciences for psychology, all working together.
Process. So the sense of collaboration that occurred from this project with all the students from different departments coming together was really important. And that collaboration, then went on to the community. And we were able to collaborate with artists and makers here in Kingston who received us and heard us and participated in this process, and they contributed to it tremendously.
I had been asked to come to a meeting and was there to take questions from the Pratt group who were investigating Kingston at the time. At the end of their interviewing me, we were looking for a space. The space was here, they had a need, so I offered it up.
We knew that we wanted to work in a place that had a history of industrial process of some sort. And turns out that Kingston really built New York in a lot of ways with bluestone and naturally curing cement and brickyards.
One of the things that was really appealing to us is that Kingston is diverse, and we wanted to be able to work with people that were less advantaged perhaps, and Midtown, this area of Kingston, has those qualities.
We have a very eclectic group of students at the high school because we are a small inner city surrounded by a very rural area, suburban area as well. So we have kids that are coming from the mountains, or they're coming from small farming communities all the way into the inner city.
The most important piece of art education is to make sure that it is public and make sure that a diverse group of public sees it and understands it is meaningful on a personal level to the student that maybe made the work or was experiencing the work, but also meaningful to the community. How does it really affect the community? How does it change the way we look at what's available to us and what we have access to? Because I think the idea of access is probably the biggest burden or the biggest hurdle that we have in terms of creating an equitable playing field.
I definitely met a lot of people from Kingston that I didn't know were here. There's a ton of artists that I didn't know that lived here. And the people that brought this program to us, like Pratt, they all helped me become more involved in my community.
Being interested in what you're learning, I think, goes such a long way toward actually learning the thing that you seek.
During the slipcasting section, we had a big snowstorm, over a foot, and they showed up at 9 a.m. instead of school when there was a snow day to keep slipcasting, because they knew that on our schedule we had to get them in the kilns. I think to get the attention and excitement of a high school 17-year-old about something that's academic or a part of school, that's hard. So it was nice to know that they're excited on their own.
This experience, working with different materials, different molds, all that was really an amazing opportunity. I had no idea that we had so many local artisans. It really opened my eyes to how design is a part of everything. It's everywhere. There's no way of avoiding it.
To have a hand in making something, and especially within a community, produces a sense of dignity and education that's really on the ground that's hard to find any other way.
this project empowered our students. It wasn't a project that was happening in the academic milieu. It was a project that was happening in real life with real people. This was a great way to sort of inject that reality into the educational process, and also to be teachers, to be instructors themselves, to help these young people, these high school kids, learn something. I mean, they really did that. I'm so incredibly proud of the work that they did.
This process embraced the unknown and embraced the fact that design and life is inherently an iterative process. And with these young minds being exposed to that in a way that they could be comfortable facing the unknown, going from being students by rote to being students of life, was very moving.
Feeling the story in a product and realizing that everything that you use, every space you inhabit, has all these people behind it, and that it's a viable and hugely diverse career path. Sort of opens the can on feeling that your world is set as it is. And I really believe that to understand how things are made is to understand how you can break them and change it. And I think that having the story of how easy it is to just come in and listen and share, and that this can come out of it, is really huge. I dream of a Kingston where the community that is here and that is raising kids here are directly engaged with the creative community that is both joining and cultivating the place.
What happens with a project like this when you're engaged in it with so many creative peoples, in the end you conclude time well spent. What else are we supposed to do in life?
Well, thank you both for joining. I really enjoyed this video. It really took me to a place. John, at one point you were reflecting on this video and you actually referred to this as one of your greatest professional achievements that you've had. And that says a lot coming from you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's something that, you strive to achieve something like this. I mean, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. And I think that it all came together in a really great way. And we had these amazing aspirations about this project. In fact, where we wanted to take it, and Garrett will reinforce that, we were hoping to continue with it because we felt like, you start something like this and you learn from it, and then you learn what you can do and what the possibilities are, I think, and the enthusiasm that continued to grow with the students, with the kids and everything. So yeah, from that point of view, I think it's something that was really unique. You never know if you're going to replicate exactly this thing again, this kind of, and the other thing I want to mention, I think it's really important, is that there was a substantial team involved in this. We have Garrett and I, we're kind of here now representing the Pratt Creative Xchange, but there were other faculty members who were critical, integral to this process and to how it developed. The whole teaching module, Luka Lucic was, without him, we would not have gotten to that point. Carol Murlock, David Frisco, these were all people who, were really critical to this idea, as well as the student team, of which there were 10 people probably, right, Garrett, over the course of the project who were in and out of it. So yeah, I know that was a long-winded response to your question. Anyway.
Well, nice. I would actually, one of the first questions I had coming out of this video is, I would see that there's these plywood cutouts hanging in the background, right? And I'm getting little glimpses of what's being made. Can both of you share a little bit about what was designed and made in the studio?
Yeah, and I think that it's one of those situations where you have to ask where design stops physically versus also designing this whole system. So I can talk about both, but as far as the physical artifacts, we basically moved in scale from interior design and really the whole town and the idea of the story of the place in down to branding and storytelling as a two-dimensional medium and a spoken medium. And so we started with interior design in the actual space, and these plywood cutouts were all furniture that was milled on a CNC. And then we used the actual cutouts as teaching tools within the space. And so you can see partition elements that are also ways of showing how this machinery works and how the process is done. And right when the students walked in, we had all the furniture stacked up in the corner, and we had the Kingston High School students that were participating set up a way for us to meet in the first place. And so from the beginning, it was all about spatial planning and all about people and how to organize space before you even actually utilize it to make something. And every module of the 4 modules, we actually had the space designed completely differently with the furniture that was modular and stackable and movable. So we started there, and then we went through the process of laying out floor plans, both physically and on paper with pen and pencil, and took them through the whole design process of the interiors, where the interior design team led. And then we moved into the furniture design, where we showed all the models and all the digital models and all the little laser cut scale models as well physically. And we toured the wood shop next door. So they were able to see, the students were all able to get a sense of both the sort of brain power required and all the iterations, and also how it's actually made and who makes this stuff right in their town. And then after that, we moved into industrial design. So we scaled down to what goes on the tables, so to say. And this is where we produce these ceramic vessels that use brick material from the town that is from sort of the history of the place and this canonical beach where everybody goes to swim, where they use the bricks as this erosion deterrent. So that's in the actual brick-shaped vessels. And then we made soap as well out of local beeswax from someone in Woodstock, Lisa Lehman, a really great soap maker. And then we even screen printed all of the materials for the boxes and the packaging, and then set up an exhibit both in town and at Javits Center during ICFF, the International Contemporary Furniture Fair, where they got to show and tell this story at a scale among international designers and see that world at a much more frontal level, right? When it's getting to the consumer, when you actually see the finished product. And so I think that the real design there is the whole system to understand from space down to object to story, that all of this has been made by people just like these students, and it's all malleable and you can be a part of any of it. So that's my long-winded answer for your first question.
And if I could just interject one thing to that, which was a fantastic description of everything that we did. We start this idea of macro to micro. There was an examination of different towns in upstate New York, and we arrived at Kingston for specific reasons that we felt we could perhaps have this kind of an experience in that environment. So there was an urban context as well that we looked at in how we got to where it started. And we wanted a specific type of community that potentially could provide this experience. So it was a starting point that was a macro view that then came down to this micro view that Garrett so aptly described.
There's something to that, that thought process of understanding the depth of something and the larger context in which what we're doing sits inside of. And the students can take that with them into whatever they do in life. One of your colleagues talks about art being accessible, and whatever we do, it's only important when it's shared and more visible to the public. Can you share a little about what she's referring to here specific to this project in Kingston?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we see in Kingston as a case study that's so perfect for the place is that you have an area where there's so much being made and so much happening, but it's really behind closed doors, and there's some disparate populations that don't have access to it or don't really know. They see the boutiques and they see the furniture, but they don't know that you can actually open the door to this garage that is usually closed, and here it is being made. And so I think that we found ourselves as more of connectors than necessarily designers in the strict term, where the objects that we made is just a means to shake hands with different groups of people and to make that accessibility. And so our hope, and I think what we hopefully achieved all together with Kingston and the students and ourselves, is to be able to just open those doors and create access to fabrication spaces and to studio assistantships and to career paths and just investigation paths that are shared between the town and the students.
It was an eye-opening experience for them on so many different levels. As Garrett described to some degree, you know, the things that we were able to do with them, the various teaching modules that taught them about architecture, interior design, exhibition design, industrial design, graphic design, and not only a kind of theoretical, because they had a little bit of theoretical, but were able to apply that directly. They were also able to see it, you know, in terms of going to the shops, seeing makers. It was all like a very holistic, you know, way of approaching it, which was our goal. And it's one of those things that, you know, we've talked about this, you know, from the board of directors at IIDA and so on. Like, how do we begin this process of educating young people about what are the possibilities for their career paths, right? And so for design, we know that it doesn't come at them until very late. You know, it's very rare for kids that are in high school or younger to have any idea about what industrial design is, or, you know, they see things that are made, but they don't understand that there's a process that goes into it. You know, it's a design process and a making process, and it's not magic. It is magic on a certain level, but it's not magic. You know, it just doesn't appear, you know, oh, look what that is. It's really something that takes a lot of work to get to. And so I would say that I believe absolutely, truly, and it was, and you know, the conclusion of it was the arrival at the ICFF, where not only did they go through this whole process, but then they arrive at a place where they see all of these objects that have been designed, that are, you know, for sale at an international level, and you know, it was heartwarming on so many different levels. I have to say, that's what I mean when we're talking about how rewarding this was. It was like to see them, a couple of them have never been to New York City before, right? So that was another thing that was kind of mind-blowing, and they only live an hour away. But, you know, this was an opportunity to really reach people who might not otherwise have ever in a million years have thought about that this was a possibility for them. And I think some of them saw it as, you know, something they might want to pursue.
I would have to agree, John. This has to be one of the most important topics in our industry right now. Exposure, awareness at this age group, and really in all communities. It's missing. It's just simply missing. You know, how do we begin to do an activity like this that offers this exposure, but at a larger scale?
And I think just to add to that was that we sought out a community that was going to provide a diverse population. I mean, that was important to us. You know, we wanted to go someplace where these kids probably have less opportunity in general, and certainly less opportunity to understand like what design is all about. So that was an important factor here. And I think that was another thing that made us feel good, that we were able to reach people that would be, you know, less apt to be able to understand this whole process.
Yeah, that's something that I can imagine that the students will take with them. You know, this experience, I would love to see our industry do more of it. Yeah, you know, Garrett, you said something that really stuck with me about scale. Big scale doesn't always mean big impact. You can do something at a small scale and have a larger impact. And I think that the part that's obvious is, of course, you reach out and you touch people you're directly connected with, but being able to tell the story just like this to show what's possible, that's what I'm really excited about. You know, the opportunity to show the work that you've done and think that we can do more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just incredible when we were sitting sort of at the end of it and seeing what had come up. And when you tell the story sort of point blank, it's like, we got this small group of students in this small town, in this small school, and did this great little program. But when you look at what was actually orchestrated and the thought processes and really the attention, I mean, to give that level of bandwidth to this idea and to, you know, go up and down from Brooklyn to Kingston, over and backwards, and deliver furniture and redeliver furniture and change it around. And there's this great video of all the students hammering the furniture together, all the Pratt students putting it up, and like, it's like real sweat that was put into this. And I think that the story that can come out of it and the way that it can be shared has so much potential for impact. just as much of the scale of the impact that we all hopefully received from the project. And it's, we focus on the high school students, but I think that it also had a lot of impact on the Pratt team and the faculty and the makers in Kingston to say, wow, okay, if we all come together, because it was absolutely a practice in collaboration across relative strangers. If you look at the arc of the project, we arrived, we met these people, we gained and gave trust, and it followed through to the point where students on our slipcasting section, we had a snow day, and the students knew about the constraints that we were under to get it done, because we were all working on our thesis project back in Brooklyn too. And so they actually, even though school was canceled, the students asked us to stay in Kingston so they could show up at 9 a.m. and continue to slipcast. And then Lex Feldheim, who runs Kingston Ceramics, stayed open to let us put the pieces in the kiln. And so the scale within this town was very large, and the scale within all of our brains of what happened in our hearts was also very large. And so if we can share this story, I think that the impact can be much better understood and can hopefully travel.
So we had the opportunity to come in on camera and capture a moment in time. But during this whole process, there's been a lot of moments. I'm sure there had to have been ones that stuck out and were more special than others. Was there a moment in time that really sticks out to you?
I'll defer to Garrett a little bit on this, because there was a couple of, with my teaching schedule and so on, I couldn't be there for a couple of sessions. And I think there's probably some things that happened that were quite amazing. The one thing I will say just quickly is that I think how we all came together as a team, when we arrived there to put that space together, I think the process of the teamwork starts out a little clunky. We've also unprecedented at Pratt is to have this many departments working together. We never do this. We're siloed a lot at Pratt, and I think we broke down that silo. That was the first hurdle that we had to overcome, was like, okay, we've got 4 departments. How do we work together? And we got through that pretty effectively. And then we were making things, designing things and making things, and we had to come together as a team to agree on the directions to take. And I think then having it all come together and culminating, I think this is before we had the internship begin. Just the space was kind of it was like a magic moment, right? I think, Garrett, you remember we had our clients, the people who were supporting us to help fund this, came in from California to see it, the Martins and so on, and that to me was kind of an amazing moment. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that there's definitely, it's impossible to capture every moment of this. But what I think in an overall arc, what I always really enjoy seeing and what I think really hits home is when there's this transference from something being very passive or being very one-directional, right? Like, welcome students, you are going to learn this thing. We will teach you it, sit back and enjoy the ride, but you hopefully will enjoy it. Maybe you'll fall asleep. Like, there's this whole thing of lectures and school, and these students are walking right from high school. And it starts out that way, of course. Like, we're total strangers in some new space with some new topic that's supposed to be interesting, but we'll see. And I think that the fact that we all started on this adventure point blank, from the Pratt faculty to us, to the Kingston makers that we brought in, to the students, allowed us to all sort of be just as nervous and to get to know each other in the same way across the whole story and the whole experience. And so there were some really sweet small moments where we all were having dinner together, because we always ate at the end of every session, from a local cafe that was brought in. And one student that was a little bit more quiet, they opened up their to-go box and broke the seal on the box on the corners to use it more as a plate, and everybody else was sort of trying to eat this salad off the walls of it, and everyone was like, oh, cool, and like they all did it, and without realizing yet, we hadn't even gotten there, like that's an industrial design moment, right? To rebel against the supposed design of this object and use it better. And from then on, this student was gabbing all day at every session. So there's moments like that, or where someone says that they saw their teapot and realized that it was slip cast. To the end where when we had our final sort of party, we opened up for like a First Fridays in town, along with all the art galleries, so that Kingston parents and other students and local artists could all come and see the work and hear the story. Then the students had set up that exhibit. I was wondering where a couple of the students were, and I saw them upstairs in the conference room, and they were writing a letter to Pratt to try and do this again and keep it going. So when you get a 16, 15, 17-year-old on their own volition to write a letter to an institution asking to have more school, that's a pretty big moment if you're trying to teach and trying to share. So I think that those sorts of moments, they don't happen easily, and it takes time and commitment. And I think that, again, that trust, that shared commitment to like, we're going to do this and we're going to see what happens and we're just going to give it our all, really paid off in that way. So those are those moments that there's too many to share, but that's what it felt like.
That's awesome, Garrett. And I think as you described that first day in class, I could totally put myself there and understand those nerves. And to think how far you guys have come as a collective is really awesome. Congratulations. It was a great accomplishment. Let's hope you can do it again. Well, it was great seeing you both, slowing down for a minute, talking and sharing. It was really great to see you.
Welcome to another Luxe Interiors and Design home tour, where we are lucky enough to get an inside peek into the homes designed by the best designers in the country. I'm Shannon Sharp. I am the Chicago and Arizona Homes Editor. And today I'm thrilled to speak to the one and only Donna Mondi, who is one of Chicago's premier interior designers. Donna is known for her style that blends ultra glam with kind of a modern edginess. And last summer, which feels like a million years ago, we featured a gorgeous downtown Chicago apartment that was full of bold color, unapologetic drama, and I'm really excited to give our viewers an inside peek. Welcome, Donna. I'm so happy to see your beautiful face. I miss seeing you out and about at all the Chicago events.
Thanks, Shannon. It's so good to be here, and I couldn't agree more. Boy, last summer feels like a lifetime ago, so looking forward to a day where we can meet for champagne again.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I see your style is very glam and very edgy. I feel like you're not afraid to do the unexpected, but I'd also love to hear how you would sum up your style.
I think, I do really like the unexpected, because I think that as designers, we should always be pushing the envelope forward and not just kind of following what everybody's done. And so I find great challenge in that. And I think it's exciting to try to bring something new and different, whether it's in like the combination of colors or finishes or textures or just kind of the overall essence and feel of a space.
Right.
But I would say I definitely try to blend in a lot of European classicism, which I love to use as sort of like a base to my design, and then bring in a really modern edge to it as well, and then that element of surprise. Now in Chicago high-rises, it's a little bit, the classical side of things gets tempered a little bit more than in some of our single-family homes, obviously.
Yeah. And for this specific project, I'd love a little background. I know the clients were empty nesters. They were moving from the suburbs to the city, which I just love. I love hearing about these, retired couples and are like, we're gonna go have a lot of fun in the city now that all the kids are out of the house. But that's a big lifestyle change. And I'm wondering if the design of their city place changed as well compared to their suburban home.
Very much so. And so that is what I love about getting, we tend to get a lot of empty nester clients that are just hitting that stage in life, and they're making a big move from maybe the big house in the North Shore to a more contemporary high rise in the city, and kind of trading lifestyles to that, more urban setting. So what I love about it is typically everything that worked in that big you know, that big home, and they were usually 15, 20 years in that place at least, just doesn't work in the city. And so we don't have to inherit a ton of things that are really difficult to work with. So we brought over 3 items, two bronze sculptures that we designed the built-ins flanking the fireplace around so that they would fit in there because they're pretty tall, and a piece of artwork that you'll see in the vanity space in the bathroom, and that was it. And so everything else really reflected where their styles had gone to, and it was all about them, with the exception of they have 2, at the time that we started, they had 2 kids that were just going off to college. One was at college, coming back and forth. So they still wanted space for them, but knowing that that would transition pretty quickly into guest bedrooms.
Right.
So we did keep them in mind, and we wanted to create a nice home for them, but it wasn't the same. So really the decisions we were making were based off of the couple.
Right. And they seemed like they were risk takers. I mean, they seemed very open to bold, beautiful colors. I mean, was this an upfront request?
Yeah, actually, from the very first meeting we had with them, their statement was, we are not afraid of color. And I could see it also in their style. Like even the husband would dress with these kind of more traditional shirts, but then they'd have like a different crazy pattern under the collar, or the buttons would be trimmed in orange or something. And so I thought, okay, they've got like a nice flair to them. I think that we can kind of push this. And so, you know, if we had just come off of, you know, a decade plus of gray and white and grayish. And so for somebody, we were always trying to push color as something different because it's fun for designers to do something different. And, you know, most of them, a lot of clients just want it to be neutral and kind of are afraid of it. They were not afraid of anything, and they really trusted us. So I got to work putting together the color scheme. It kind of started with just colors, and I usually hit the wall behind me and start pulling just fabrics and colors that I like, how they work together. And that's usually like part of my creative process, is kind of coming up with some combination that's different. And with this one, using that really, you know, kind of bright chartreuse, and then the deep teal, and then mixing in that, you know, little accents of orange. I thought it was so unique, but then we also grounded it with charcoals and grays and creams. So it kind of, and blacks. I think everything should have black.
Yes, I know that about you. You always have that kind of glamour with the black that always adds that extra level of drama. And I love that about your work.
Thank you. It's my favorite color.
And I'm actually glad you brought up the color aspect, because I see that like one of the most important ways you incorporated color was through the use of art. And I think the dining room and living room are just great examples of that. Like, I am obsessed with those 2 Lynn Bassa pieces hanging on the wall in the dining room. And then there's that beautiful photograph above the fireplace. Now, do you use a color palette to play off the art, or vice versa?
We always, as part of my process is, you know, the art can come first. For me, it's almost always last. So unless it's an existing piece of art that they're bringing in that I have to work in, or an art collection that we're working with, I pick the art last. And what I love about this particular living room and dining room is it looks like I picked the art first and then based all the furniture off of it. And I love that, because that's not at all how it happened. We use an art broker and an art dealer and consultant in Chicago, Daniel Kincaid Fine Art, and he is such a great resource. And so he gets me, he understands my style. And so I will tell him, we send him our presentation, because at that point it's pretty much done by the time we're picking art. The presentation it's clear. So we know what our furniture is going to be, our color palettes, our space plans, what size art we need and where. And so I'll send that to him, and he'll send me back a big PDF of tons of options. And I'll just kind of, you know, check the ones that I really like. And then we'll go back and see, like, okay, does this work size-wise? Can we get it sized in that? Do we have to commission something? Which for the Lynn Bassa pieces, we did end up commissioning those, because I really wanted to bring that teal closer to the dining room. And so she already had a collection of this style of paintings. And so I thought, well, if we give you a paint color, can you do that? So we commissioned those, which we love to do. And I love using our Chicago designers artists, because we can really get our hands on, experiences with them and go visit their studios and really get exactly what we need for that. And in the master, we did I love that the master bedroom has an Eric Gushy piece that hangs over the bed, and it's just so ethereal. And I see a Gushy over your left shoulder. I spy. And I think it's so much fun to have, be more creative with your artwork and really vary it from room to room and area to area, just to have, it adds so much drama and impact.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. Well, also, I have always noticed this about you, that you really do support the local Chicago art scene. I mean, we're very lucky here, obviously, because we have the School of the Art Institute, which, brings out so many amazing artists. But I mean, you talked about the master bedroom, we talked about living in dining spaces, but you literally put art everywhere. Everywhere. I can see, in the hallways, the master bathroom, you really, I mean, I can see how important that was to not just to this project, but to every project you work on. And I'd love for you to talk about some of the other spaces too, like the media room, for example, which is just so cozy. I could see myself curling up there with, red wine or a hot chocolate.
Bucket of popcorn.
Yes, exactly. And for example, how did you choose the art for that room?
So that room was all about, just to give you like a little purpose for that space. In most of these units, that's actually considered a study area.
Okay.
So you would do a formal study, and they really wanted to use that as a media room for their older, kind of young adult sons and their friends. And so we had to take this little space and kind of get the most seating out of it, create a media wall. We've got surround sound, great system in there. And so we added these steel and glass doors to give it, just a really beautiful entryway. And then we have a really dark navy with copper detailing, wall covering in there. And then we did the ceiling in a navy lacquer. And so it just really like envelopes the space. And there's plenty of seating. They can, the college kids can come over. We did these leather, on top of the built-in there, we have leather poofs or floor cushions that they can pull out and watch TV from the floor. So they really get to use this space, whether it's the two of them or whether their kids are home for the summer or weekend, or these days more than they thought, because it's a very unique time for college kids. So yeah, so they're getting a lot of use out of this space now. So that was what the space was intended for. And then as far as the art goes, we really wanted to bring in some of the colorful, because this was kind of definitely a darker, more cavernous space. So we wanted to pop in some of the bold colors that you were seeing outside the space. So we have Sosin, I think, is the artist that you'll see on the left. And it's sort of this blurred out, it almost looks like you're looking through like a rainy glass shield kind of thing. And you're not sure what you're looking at, which I love. And then Sally Coe, who's a Chicago artist that we also love. With her, she has this great way of layering paint that is, I think, really unique. And so I just give her the colors, and I'm like, here are the colors I need. And I want it to kind of look like this one that you did. And then you got to let them go. Like, you got to let artists be artists.
Right.
Designers don't want to be controlled down to the last detail. We do our best work when our clients trust us. And I follow that same thing with our artists. So once you know their work, you just give them the direction and let them do their magic.
Absolutely. And I find, so for some of the rooms, you also incorporated your own furniture designs. For example, in the master bathroom, you have that beautiful vanity stool. Could you speak about those particular designs that you did incorporate and why you chose them?
Sure. Yeah, I do have a small furnishing collection, and it is very much based in a combination of kind of European glamour and some fashion inspiration. For example, there's a table in the living room that's between these two hide chairs, And it was inspired off of a cuff bracelet, and it's sort of an asymmetrical cuff. And it has this beautiful like gilding on the inside that you know, it's kind of a nice little surprise, and a lucite top. So it looks really special. So it's kind of a neat, special little piece that you won't see everywhere. And then and actually I sometimes forget to incorporate my furniture into our designs. And what I love is our clients will be like, well, what about your piece? And what about that piece? And what about this vanity chair? And I'm like, oh, right, let's do that. So it's kind of fun. And so we did do our Carolina vanity chair in their master bathroom. And typically I show that in a fuchsia mohair. And this wasn't the place for color, ironically, because their master is much more neutral and calm, and I think just really peaceful. And so we did it in a gray mohair instead, a charcoal mohair, and it just turned out really beautifully.
Yeah. And I'd love to touch upon your design philosophy, which I just love, which is that when things start to get a little too precious or beautiful, you want to add a little grit, a little earthiness, kind of keep things grounded. And I'd love to hear some examples of how you did that in this home.
Sure. I kind of learned this early on. I tend to go towards really decadent things. So I love like mohairs and velvets and shimmery textures, really rich fabrics, lacquered finishes. But what happens is if you use too much of that and you don't balance it out with, I think you have to like layer your designs with all these different elements to get them to have that like depth and body to them. And so I realized I needed to incorporate more, kind of organic, natural elements. So I love the idea of putting, I have a petrified wood table that could go in a lodgy space, versus this more glamorous apartment. And it's sitting next to this beautiful kind of deco-y, chase that's covered in a rich velvet or silk mohair. And so I think those two things you wouldn't think of together, but then if you do your job well, like they'll just fit in really well. And so I think items like that, or like the hide chairs in the living room, those really add like that grit to the space that keep it from being too precious and too pretty. And I think it makes it far more interesting. We all want a girl is cooler if she's got a little grit to her, even if she's
absolutely
glamorous, right? So I think I kind of think of it that way.
Have a little edge to them, right?
Exactly, right. A little dark side's okay.
So obviously, every project comes with challenges, and I'd love to know what the challenges were with this project.
With city spaces, you're always space is a premium. These are pretty generous apartments, so it wasn't too bad that way. But we did have, when you have these like kind of wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling windows, there's always the challenge of putting, the functional things up against them. So we didn't have a TV wall for this family room, and so we were able to place the electrical in this unit prior to, so we were lucky enough to be able to do this, but we did a custom design on a pop-up TV cabinet so that they're not, I don't like the idea of a big TV with the back facing out. And I don't know if I'm just, it blocks the view. Your neighbors, that's what they're seeing. I want the neighbors to be like, ooh, look at that place. I want to make friends with them, I need to get in there. And so I think doing the pop-up TV was the perfect answer for that. And then in the bathroom, we had kind of the same issue where the vanity was actually facing a window, which is not ideal. It's great when you're putting your makeup on, you get all this beautiful natural light. So we didn't want to block that. So we did lighted mirrors that we mounted on the ceiling, and they sort of float above the vanity. And then we dropped some pendants, and they're all really light. So you still get this beautiful, wonderful view, but the functionality that you need out of your vanity is there.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Beautiful function, right?
Yes, exactly. I have to live here after all.
Yes, exactly. Were the homeowners nervous about anything? Like, were they like, you're crazy? What if you proposed anything?
I do get that from a lot of homeowners, but I have to say this couple really trusted us, and I think, once we have great visualization platforms and tools, so we really want the client to understand, like, here's what your home's going to look like. This is not going to be a big surprise to you.
Right.
So it takes a lot of the fear out of it. So that can help convey our ideas and our presentations early on.
Right.
But they really did trust us. And I'll tell you, we do our best work. And I'm sure 100% of the designers watching this will say the same thing. And if you're a client watching this, trust your designer, let them do their best work, because it really, that's when we shine. That's why showcase houses are so, they're so interesting, because it's really like, the designer's brain that's like unhinged, you can just like go for it. Nothing's holding you back, and we do our best work that way. So, it's make sure we're listening and that we understand like what functions and how you want to use the space and what your tastes and preferences are. None of my homes look the same, and I love that. I want that to be, each one to be very unique to each client. So I don't think you look at mine and think, oh, that's, Donna always does X, Y, Z, or always works with these colors or those fabrics or whatever, even though you probably always find like a mohair and a velvet. You probably know that about me by now.
Okay.
But they all look different.
Girl too, so nothing wrong
I
with
just love it. Like, you just want to like dye and fur, there's usually a fur somewhere. So that's why I need the natural organic things to sort of temper it all.
Right.
But no, they really did trust us, which was great. And it made it so much fun. And we did really have a good time. I'm not just saying that, we really had a good time working together. They were so awesome. So all I can hope is that they buy a vacation home soon. I miss them.
What are their favorite aspects of the home?
I think the idea that we really did make spaces for their older sons or young adult sons, so they do feel really comfortable being there. And when they come home, they know they have their rooms and they have their spaces. And the media room, so they can have their friends over, because they love having their friends come to the city, because they're all from the North Shore. So it's fun to spend, the weekend in the city. And so I think really there's still, even though they're empty nesters, like they still really love having their sons around and having a place that they can feel at home. Right. So I probably would say that they would say the media room.
Right.
Probably gets the most. And the outdoor, the outdoor space too. We did an outdoor kitchen for them. We did a built-in fireplace and grill, and kind of countertop solution there, and then added some great furnishings out there so that they can, even though they don't have a yard anymore, they can get outside and get some fresh air and entertain out there as well.
Yeah. You said, I think, if I recall correctly, they're like big football people, right? So
yes.
They like to watch the game, like barbecue outside and be able to watch the game out there.
Exactly. They definitely are into sports. So that was really important to them, to be able to have places to be able to just hang out as a group and watch together.
Right. And so what were your favorite aspects of working on the project?
Ooh, that's a good question. I love the living room. I think the living room's my favorite room, because the color palette is so unexpected. It's not colors that you naturally think of that go together.
Right.
I think that's probably my favorite. And the dining room is really fun, because what you can't probably tell in photos is, as you come, I see your cat. I love it.
No way.
The reality of life, right? COVID, something lurking around out there.
Yeah, right.
But when you come down the dining into the foyer, these homes, almost all the units, we actually did 6 units in the same building, so we are very well versed on what happens in this building. There's a really long, wide kind of corridor gallery. It's like a gallery that leads into the units, and you can see the view on the other side of that. And so I love the kind of the silhouette of the dining table, the cloud chandelier. And it just kind of, it pulls you in, and you're just like, ooh, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like.
Right.
And I think it's so fun to create that moment when people enter and maybe they haven't been there before, and they are drawn in and they just can't wait to see more.
Absolutely.
That'd probably be another favorite. And the arts.
Oh yeah, the art. I mean, you
love the art.
really are. I mean, I feel like you are a big supporter of artists, which I always admire in a designer.
I wish I could do what they do. I have such admiration, and my only regret is I didn't set up a painting studio to start playing around with my own thing. But it's never as easy as it looks, right?
Right. Well, I feel like your
stick
sample
to what you know.
wall is a work of art unto itself behind you. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I love having everything at our fingertips, so we don't have to run around when we start a new project. And like I said, really from the very beginning, I kind of hit this wall and just go like, what? Even if the colors are just representative of something else, it could be something that shows up in the art, not in fabric. It's where I play with, those color combinations.
Yeah, really fun part about your job, right? It's just like,
it really is. That's my favorite part of the process is the first, few weeks of design where you're really coming up with like, what's the soul of this place? What's it going to be? And then, making it happen isn't the fun part, honestly. And then the end where you're like, oh, look how beautiful your place is, and you're having champagne and toasting to it. Those are my two. I like the bookends of this job. The stuff in the middle is not pretty.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. God, it has been so lovely talking to you, Donna. I always enjoy talking to you. I cannot wait to see you in person again.
Yes.
But thank you so much for this beautiful project, creating this beautiful project, for taking the time to speak to us. And I know our viewers really appreciate it too. And to our DesignTV viewers, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, have a great day.
I was not such a good designer or a good illustrator, but I always knew exactly what would happen in fashion. And we would go to Paris, to Saint Laurent, and I would already have the coat which was on the runway. So that has always been the case, and this is where they discovered that I had that nose. And so they started to develop a curriculum especially for me to train me in that sense. Our trends are not about gadgets or fancy moments. They are really about very long rolling sort of movements of society.
Please join me and give a very warm welcome to Cindy and Lee.
The circle has so much positive value, so incredible deep relations to our psyche, to the planet, to everything in our systems.
Lee is an educator. She characterizes herself, I think the term is trend forecaster. It's a hell of a lot of work. A lot of study, ear to the ground, talking to people, analysis. I mean, she's a student of human behavior, which allows her to say, this is where I think we want to go. And then she actually takes responsibility for taking us there.
I was born in Wageningen, which is a small medieval town in the Netherlands. Because I was born in 50 and there was nothing. So I used cardboard and I just created all sorts of objects and a music player and records, and I would hear music and everything was in my brain. So even today I think this is the background of the way I work. In Trend Union we publish portfolios with ideas. There is a color card. Then there is a general trend book, which is the big sort of textile book, which is the Bible of the season, which has all the secrets and all the details and so on. Then there is a book on menswear, and then we do once a year a book on interior and design. The color card in the end will be presented like this. It has, all the dyed colors in color ranges.
That's so beautiful.
Now I'm studying the new ones, which are for autumn winter 2020.
Oh wow.
I called it Indian summer, like India. So this is the strange colors between sort of old rose and brick.
These are
very strange
colors.
Hare Krishna.
He's amazing.
So you could just imagine how you can make knitwear and,
The world of Edelkoort, right?
Yeah.
Early on, where were you gravitating towards? Was it primarily fashion then?
It was really fashion. I was really educated in fashion, and this was my thing. And design became a second very big obsession when the Design Academy asked me to be head of a department of design.
At Eindhoven?
Yeah. So then I spent for 10 years, 1 week a month in Eindhoven. It was an explosion of creativity.
She asked questions. She challenged. Li liked the mess. The values that were emerging, the humanity, let's say, that was brought back to craftsmanship, to the human hand. She argued that we're talking about seeing a designer's mind converting something, taking it to the next level based on where we are in the world today.
But you actually do work with big companies.
Yeah, they ask, very brave for them to ask me, very brave for me to go in front of the lions. The car I made with Nissan, I don't even have a license. And they said, that doesn't matter. We know how to design a car, but we want to know what is the context and how are people going to live and what is the situation. It looked weird in those days, but got all the prices a car can get in 1993. And then all the other cars were designed in that manner. Even also when I work on curriculums and on designing schools, it's always within mind what will happen.
As you said, it's only a year old that there's this
Yes.
maker studio.
There is a real interest from students more and more into making. And it's funny because 10 years ago, all schools wanted to get rid of all making material. And now there is this backlash from the student zone, from the art, from the architecture, from the design, from fashion, to say, I want to make stuff, I want to have tactility, and I want to make textile.
Yes. That is fantastic.
The youngest generation are completely in favor of a better world. Working together, working in teams, no longer ownership. It's a new breed. We are going to a new future, but maybe it's a new system. Textiles are going to make an enormous comeback. And in the end, maybe we will see that the 21st century is the century of textiles.
Are you optimistic about the future?
It's very hard to say, because I'm going to write a trend forecast for 2050. But the next step is more difficult, because we have such conflicting mentalities, politics, economics, and so on, that it's almost that you have to predict who is going to win the fight.
Who's going to win? Li, help us.
I think us.
Yeah.
I think us, but it will be a narrow escape. It will be a narrow escape. But in the end, I think with this young generation, we are going to choose humanity.
Hi there, my name is Kathryn Given, and I am the Senior Style and Market Editor at Luxe Interiors and Design magazine. Thanks so much for tuning into our Makers segment on DesignTV. I am thrilled to be chatting today with Hubbardton Forge's David Kitts, who is the VP of Product Design and Strategy. David, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kathryn. It's a pleasure, and I thank you guys for pulling this together.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be chatting. Hubbardton Forge, of course, are the makers of beautiful lighting, but the company is also very interesting for a number of reasons. You guys are based up in Castleton, Vermont, which sounds pretty lovely this time of year. And you also run one of the country's oldest and largest continuously operating forges, which is pretty fascinating. More on that later. But, each product you guys make is handcrafted to order. You work with a number of local artisans in the area and obviously have very strong community ties. But David, first, do you kind of just want to talk briefly about your role at the company and maybe, a bit about what Hubbardton Forge does?
So for nearly 50 years, Hubbardton Forge has been hand-making decorative lighting, everything from chandeliers, kitchen pendants, table lamps, outdoor sconces. Like you mentioned, we make them made to order. We'll do. It's all done here, from design to engineering. We bring in the steel, we cut, we weld, we forge, obviously, we powder coat, we assemble, wire, pack, customer service. Everything is, under one roof right here in Castleton, Vermont. I've been with the company for a little over 10 years to help kind of continuously evolve the look. I oversee the design and product development stages of our product. It's been an amazing opportunity and just a very fun place to work, because you do really get to work hand in hand with the craftsmen here and craftsmen actually throughout the state also.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good place to be. And, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about what you just said. I know you guys really embrace sort of the local Vermont heritage. You kind of have an interesting model where you're working really with makers and artisans in the area. We talked about this, David. Now more than ever, it's super important to support artisans and makers. But do you want to talk about that model a little bit more and sort of your connection to the community?
Yeah, it's always been important to let people know, where the product's coming. But like you said, it's become an even bigger part of products today. And, we always touted ourselves as having everything under one roof. And the reality is, over the last 5-10 years, we've really grown our family to other companies, particularly within Vermont, really utilizing their expertise, their experience. And it's everything from glass. We work with a couple of local glass vendors, from AO Glass in Burlington to Simon Pierce in Quechee. Wood we're getting supplied from Maple Landmark. They specialize in the little wooden letter trains that they sell. With LEDs, we work with LED Dynamics and Randolph. Again, these are companies an hour away that not only do they bring us a quality and experience, but the ability to meet up with them, to visit, to work with them, to develop glass, to develop LEDs, to really create more of a personalized approach for us with what we're looking for. It allows us to innovate with them. It expands our R&D capabilities, exponentially, while, we're all trying to create new innovative products that's not seen anywhere else in the country. So it's been, quite an evolution in the last 5-10 years working with other Vermont partners. And even, I can't not mention Appalachian Stitching. They're over in New Hampshire where we bring leather, so they're close enough.
Nice. Yeah, I love these relationships you guys have. And, that's sort of at the core of the Luxe ethos, is really supporting what's happening locally, So I also, the fact is you guys are a really agile company. It sets you apart from the competition in a big way. You can create thousands of products or SKUs, but you also do really large custom orders, and you can involve the consumer, the interior designer, sort of in any stage of the process. So how does that sort of work, David? Or what does set you apart from the competition?
I mean, to be successful a successful domestic manufacturer, it really is key to be able to evolve, to be agile. Customer needs change year over year. There's trends, there's technology. So our goal is to help problem solve for the customer. It could be a homeowner, it could be an interior designer, it could be a very large hotel chain that needs 1,000 sconces that are ADA, or it could be someone that's looking for a custom chandelier for their entryway. And so, what we strive to do is be able to give those tools, be able to solve those problems, for different customers. And at the same time, I like to work very closely, on the custom side, because it lets us know what are the gaps, what are the needs that we might not have in our current line. It gives us a direct connection with the consumer, with the customer, that are familiar with our product, but maybe there's just something they, are looking to tweak or change, or again, it's generally a problem that they're looking for us to help solve. Sometimes it could just be, I need this light fixture in a week. Can you do it? And again, everything is made to order, but if we have the parts, we can get something built and out of the facility in less than a week. At the same time, we've done orders with, 1,500 sconces. And so again, that agility is really key for our success and for us to continuously build, strong relationships with our consumers and customers.
Definitely. And, I want to pivot for a sec, but I know sort of environmentally responsible practices are obviously at the top of mind, for a lot of people. You guys are in sort of this bucolic, idyllic part of the country, but what does Hubbard and Ford do to support this?
Well, Vermont was green way before it was popular to be green.
Very true.
And I think that was instilled with the founders of the company nearly 50 years ago to do things that, made sense not only for the company, but for the local community. We have won 6 Vermont Governor's Awards for environmental excellence. One of the handful of companies in North America to use a phosphate-free bioremediation solution. So all of this has to do with how clean you get the steel before you finish it. Because we powder coat, which is a very environmentally friendly process, the key to a very durable powder coat, is that prep work of the steel. And so there are a lot of environmentally unfriendly ways to do that. We've found, the most environmentally friendly, the ones that are, aqueous based. We have wash solutions that last, years. That's how it's measured. And but just as a company, it's it's about the local community. It's fundraising for local food pantries or the humane shelter. It's a lot of employee development programs. It's really creating that kind of family environment, a place where people want to work, that are excited to be back at work, and we really want to create those kind of career type jobs.
Well, big congratulations for that, because I know that, as you said, takes a lot of time and energy. But David, I'd love to sort of dive into some of Hubbard Forge's beautiful products, obviously, that you sort of mastermind, and talk about the design process, really from start to finish, so people can understand what goes into producing these amazing pieces. I know it's everything from sketching, prototyping, engineering, finishing stages, but I know Derby, that's one of your latest designs, right?
Yeah, it's it starts with having a great design team. There's 4 of us. We all have very different backgrounds. The Derby was something that Andy Mortar started up with, and he's kind of more of a gearhead and really into the mechanics of things. And what we wanted to do was bring a blend of technology with materials and a nice story of the two. The interesting thing about the Derby is there's no forged steel element. It's LEDs that we developed with LED Dynamics, and it's then running power through the leather straps in an innovative way where you're not seeing a cable, sewn into it. It's again conducting that low voltage power through the leather to the light source, which just gives it that kind of a little bit of like magical element of, how did they do that? And so that's a lot of, in this case, Andy working with Appalachian stitching on the leather, on getting the conductive properties sewn into it. It's working with LED Dynamics for that, light output that we're looking for those spheres, and bringing something to market that's, on the different side.
Yeah, I love the leather. It's so handsome. But I think I remember at last High Point Market maybe seeing the abacus. I'm not sure if it was there or somewhere else, which is also a very, very interesting design. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's, that was probably the beginning of the Derby. Took the abacus technology and we brought that kind of softer, more organic leather element to it. And with the abacus, we wanted to create a platform that was going to be something fun for the homeowner or interior designers to personalize, make their own. So each sphere that's held, onto the cables can be raised, lowered. You can add more spheres, remove spheres. You can get different colors. It's not just a 5-light dining pendant. It's a room divider. We've sold custom abacuses that are 20, 30 feet high, 30 pieces of glass for an entryway. That's been a common request for it. We've had abacuses go in, I believe it was an airport hangar, because they look to divide a space. So it's really, it's our, wanting to expand the, our capabilities here to interior designers, to homeowners, to be able to get things that are more personalized without going through, the more daunting, I'm looking for a custom from scratch fixture. It's kind of giving them the tools to, create something that's a little bit more personalized, different, unique, to help solve problems they might have in a space or an area.
Yeah, I can only imagine what you see, what people are dreaming up. And then Griffin was another one that I loved. Can you just sort of touch on that?
Yeah, and that was a partnership with Simon Pierce, a local glass blower not too far from us. And we really wanted to highlight the beautiful organic properties that you can get from glass and steel. And so the glass just has this, these undulating ripples in it. And the steel has, a very bark-like texture. And, these aren't cast pieces of steel. They're, each piece is hammered in the forge. We develop the tools and the dies to create that texture. No two pieces are the same. It really brings out that, that natural steel element. And then the glass comes in and just softens the whole thing with a beautiful warm glow. And it's, done really well for us by, targeting that look.
Yeah, I imagine this like above a dining table or something. But David, this was so interesting. A big thank you for joining us today on our Maker segment. And, to our viewers, stay tuned for what's next on DesignTV, and see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
there. I'm Kathryn Given, the Senior Style and Market Editor at Luxe Interiors and Design magazine. Thank you so much for tuning into our Maker segment on DesignTV. I am thrilled to be chatting today with the Bright Group's Douglas Levine, who is the design director there. Doug, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
A quick intro on the Bright Group. You guys showcase a mix of independently owned and operated manufacturers, artisans, and designers, and of course features beautifully handcrafted furniture pieces, all made in America. They really have a huge breadth of products, aesthetics, and also do a lot of custom work. But I know, you, Doug, and the company put a big emphasis on the artisan and the individuals that are making furniture, but also passing down this craftsmanship, knowledge, and heritage that really comes with this, which is so important today. I also realize you've been with the company for some time, and your role has truly evolved from what was supposed to just be a few-year consultation job on product lines to an almost 30-year partnership where you're really doing everything visual for the Bright Group. So do you just want to start really talking a bit about your role and the company in general?
Yes, and everything you said is correct.
Good.
Because when you go into this project, that was supposed to be a 2-year project of sort of rebranding, repositioning a company that had a few showrooms and a very well-crafted line of furniture, but just needed to be brought into fashion more forward, and then turning it into really a big branded showroom showing many of America's great designers, as well as then creating our own collections. So there has been an amazing evolution that I didn't think would ever really last past a 3-year project, but it's turned into an amazing partnership, an amazing friendship, and as well as all the different other designers that we show, the great friendships that have come from that as well, and then bringing together all the American designers and the American craftsmen and celebrating. So it's been fun.
Amazing role. And, I'm just curious, like when someone asks you, like, what is the Bright Group? What do you say? Put you on the spot.
The Bright Group would be the showroom side to this business. And it is the showroom that shows products, not just our own furniture, but the products and furniture and lighting and just design of American designers, brought together and curated into a beautiful showroom of how to use the product or suggestions on how to use a product, and celebrating the designers that are out there that we should be just celebrating from our own country.
Certainly, yeah, made in America. I also know, you're really doing everything visual for the brand, as I mentioned, and obviously part of that is product and introductions. And I think the Wand collection, I believe, is launching soon.
Yes.
And I'm really just hoping you can sort of walk us through how these collections come together, really the entire process from sketching, designing, prototyping, manufacturing, just so, we can really learn what goes into making these collections.
Well, it's always an interesting question because the process is always changing, because so much of it has to do with what we see in the world, and being on all sides of the industry, from an interior designer to a product designer to showroom directors, the sales and everything. I'm seeing what's out there and what's out there right now and what's not out there. And the important part is bringing a collection that is historically referential, that feels somewhat familiar, but also bringing it forward. So we're somewhere lost in time and creating something of a next new classic. So the Wand really came out of just seeing what's not in the market. And with upholstery, I would say it's sometimes a little less sexy than doing lighting or metals and woodwork, because you're foam and fabric, if you think about it in the end. So what it's really doing is creating silhouettes
And like in fashion, the seasons change and the silhouettes change. So that's how I look at it this way: is what is the fashion of the silhouette for today, but giving it enough classic. So like if you happen to have that great Dior dress from the 1960s, you would still definitely want to wear it today. So that's how I look at it. So the wand is very fashion. I think it's fashion forward. It has this beautiful open center slit in the back. It has a floating floating seat, so you get light and air and everything through it. You could look at it as somewhere lost in time. Is it slightly referential to deco? Maybe. Is it a little bit 60s mod? A little bit. Is it a little 70s? Yes, but it's definitely today and tomorrow.
And then just, touching a little bit on like, where are you prototyping these pieces? And are you at the factory also sort of directing really, a hands-on process?
Yeah, so going from pretty much a quick hand sketch, I sketch very small on little tiny sketchbooks, and then we put it in the computer. I mean, very small, with it like 5-second sketches. But in that sketch, I know 98%, 95% of the detail. Then we go and put it in the computer, and then from there it goes to the factory, and then the factory starts prototyping, and then that's when I show up. When the frames start coming together and we look at the frames. And it's always really hard because when you look at an upholstered piece of furniture, the frame is probably, it's ugly. It's bulky and chunky, and you can never really see or feel what it's going to be in the end. So you have to have a really good three-dimensional mind for that. And then we walk it all the way through from the gluing of the frames to the adding of the foam and the upholstery and the down or whatever the piece has, springing, getting the seat pitches exactly perfect. I mean, we'll remake a piece for 1/8 of an inch if that will make a difference. We'll shave down a leg, we'll couture it, we'll nip it, we'll tailor it to fit perfectly before we ever put it out. And it could even be something that looks so simple, but the reality of it is it's actually really quite complex, and takes master craftsmen to really do these pieces, even the ones that look very simple.
I hear you. And then what also interests me is, okay, you finally have these pieces, they're in the showroom, some sell, some don't. Like, can you talk a little bit, about when you're finally, when you finally completed a collection, and how do some pieces do so well? How do some, not? And I know the Bright Group really has timeless designs that sort of, supersede all years and decades. But can you just touch a little bit on sort of like when you have the completed product?
Well, it's something you never really know. I mean, there has been a few pieces in the collections that we thought were going to be the big hits, the big winners right off, and it just kind of sat there. And then others really take off in 3 years, and then they stay in the collection for 20. So, but the idea of trying to create something of the next classic is a difficult one to try to do. But if you introduce something that's too early for the market, you'll get a lot of press and people will love it, but it won't sell. So it's always trying to find that perfect point of how far do you push it? Where do you take it next? Where is it going? And because I'd rather have a piece that has the longevity of 10 years to 30 years than one super cool piece that in a year and a half nobody wants to look at again.
I hear you.
So sometimes it just feels right. It's just, I think it's a gut instinct really more than anything, but it's really also knowing the market, really knowing what's selling right now, so you know how to take it to the next future and near future sales.
So I also want to touch on, it's the David collection, right?
Yes.
This is also really beautiful pieces. Can you talk about the inspiration here?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is people like sectionals again. Of course, it's been a popular thing that's kind of never really gone away. And the most fun ones were always the ones from the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s, and the Italians that did these amazing pieces and the flexibility of them. So the David's collection is sort of, it's like 3 sculpted pieces that fit together to make a sofa or to make a chair, whatever, however you want to use it. It has a round removable lumbar support. So it creates this sort of fun puzzle of what you can do. And there's those corner pieces, there's pieces that go inward, there's pieces that go outward. It can snake, it could be straight, it could be an L shape. And it's taking those pieces and then within that you have the 3 different segments of the back, the seat, and the sort of oval pillow. And then those could all be done in different fabrics as well. So you could really create kind of anything you want. You can go as subtle and quiet and elegant, or as absolute crazy as you want to go, and colorful as you want to go. And I just think it's a fun piece, and it's time for it. And it's something that you are seeing from that would fit perfectly in any commercial space, any hotel space, as well as your living room.
How would you use it, like in your own home?
Well, I'm actually have already ordered for myself the single chair and ottoman for my guest room. So if you're ever in town, there's a guest room and a wonderful chair and ottoman for you. So I'm using it as a single chair because I really love seeing the single chair. But if I was redoing my home right now, I'd probably do it as a chamfered L shape, just because of the shape of it. But I really look forward to it in the showrooms. We're doing the snaking sofa that winds around, which I love, which is perfect for any large space.
So I just also, want to touch quickly on how you guys really are championing craftsmanship and heritage, making. Can you just touch on why that's still so important today?
Well, I talk to so many different people almost on a daily basis, because so many of them are my friends, and these are the craftsmen, and they are the craftsmen as well as the designers that we're making here in America, and we represent a lot of them as well as others that are represented by other people. And just, there's a passion to wanting to design and create furniture. You don't know where it comes from, and it's something you don't even think about when you're in school. It just kind of happens or finds you. And the importance of a handmade piece of furniture is why you see on the auction blocks even all those amazing pieces that we all want to see. And then you see the other ones, all the big mass-produced pieces. They're desirable and they're fun, but they're not really the things that are highly collected. And I think it would be whether it's a musician or a painter, painting the right canvas. We're sculpting 3-dimensional objects that are just happen to be used by our bodies. And I think there's the pride and the ownership as an artist or artisan or a craftsman to make it perfect. And there are only a handful of people really around the world who always do this. But that is important. And of course, obviously, exclusivity, price points, things like that come into play, because that's what it takes to produce a lot of these pieces. But it is really based on a passion. I mean, that's why we want to do it. But we're all really working hard to try to keep the industries here as well. And they're all over the country in small little locations. Some are big factories, some are small, all doing their own part to keep it here. And then in the US is really known for probably the most well-made and handcrafted furniture in the world right now.
Bravo, for you and to the Bright Group for doing this, because it's so important today, now more than ever. And, just to wrap up, Doug, I so enjoyed chatting with you, about the Bright Group, what you guys are doing, what's coming next. A big thank you for joining us today on our Makers segment, and to our viewers, stay tuned for what's next on DesignTV, and see you soon. Thanks so much, Doug.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.